have Maksym, who was the first employee at Near Inc.
Yeah,
Can
Max.
we get a round of applause for Maksym?
Go, Max.
He is the VP of Engineering at Pagoda and spent over 3 years at Google. And today he's going to tell us more about the new Developer DAO for Near. So thank you so much, Maksym. I'm going to help you get started.
Alrighty. Well, you've heard about Near, our ecosystem, how many apps we have. Now the bigger question is, how is all of that organized? I mean, we know that we have big entities like Pagoda and Near Foundation who like run the show, and maybe some other big entities like Banyan that create certain kind of development dynamics. But as you probably know from the open source communities, the healthiest dynamics of the open source community comes from the developers themselves that self-organize, somehow elect themselves into various roles, and maybe even seek funding. And this is what developer governance is about. So this talk is going to be about this social structure that we have inside Near blockchain ecosystem that allows developers to get together and get stuff done. And yeah, I'm the person who's leading this effort. So first, like, let me start like right with like philosophical dilemma, right? Why not? So the fundamental problem that we have with the decentralizing community is that we want it to be organic. We want it to be real. Like just like many other like open source communities, let's say like Rust, right? How many of you know Rust open source community? Raise your hands. Right, 1, 2, right, cool. Well, Rust open source community quickly earned its reputation for being extremely healthy, organic, welcoming, inclusive, and they're getting stuff done pretty quickly. The problem with this is that it took them 7 years to do that, right? We don't have 7 years. We cannot wait for Near developer community to just like organically emerge and start building things together. And Rust was one of the fastest open source communities to emerge like this because for most of them it takes more than 7 years. So we want things to move fast, but at the same time you want them to be organic, you want, and also to be robust, right? You don't want to rely on a single person to run this whole thing because what happens if the bus hits this person, right? You want a bus factor of greater than 1, and you want to have like complex structure, social structure in there. There are already engineering DAOs that exist in other blockchains, and they immediately encounter the problem of what happens if you just let anyone do anything, right? There are some of them that have 500 plus engineers, and they run the social experiment of like, okay, let everyone do whatever they want, write whatever code they want, just roam around, discuss it freely in Telegram channels to figure out what you want to build. The ecosystem stalls immediately. Without the structure, without some kind of separation of responsibilities, if you have everyone doing everything, nothing is going to get done. So that's an example of unreliable system. And we want to avoid it with Near blockchain. So that's the developer governance. As I told you, this is the social structure, this organization without the company basically that we are running for the Near ecosystem. And the things that it's trying to solve is idea generation, idea screening, and implementation of ideas. So these are like 3 steps to success that we have for Near developer governance. And I want to tell you more about each of them. So how do we facilitate idea generation? We have so-called community groups or builder groups. So Banyan team likes to call them builder groups, which is also fine. We didn't invent this concept. We took it as is from the Rust communities and WebAssembly and AssemblyScript communities. So what is a community group? That's basically a huddle of engineers coming together and brainstorming and discussing things in their own format, in their own free time, either in Telegram channel or a video call or physically, like in this space like that. And anyone can create community group, anyone can join any community group. This should be super permissionless and free to enter for anyone. So we have already about a dozen community groups in the ecosystem. They come to talk about the protocol. They can talk about the applications like DeFi, some developer tools, sometimes even specialized developer tools, like developer tools written in Python. We have a community group for that. Yeah, we have actually 11 of them today. So that's where the ideas are getting generated. People come together, they grab a coffee, bagel, they just chat about whatever is on their mind. Sometimes people present if they have some great ideas that they want to pitch, and brainstorm in a free form, and they generate ideas in these groups. And then once they have an idea, if they feel especially strongly about it, they can go and formalize it and submit in what is called new enhancement proposal. So that's basically like a formal statement of, I have an idea and I want community to take me seriously. It's very similar to our RFCs in the open source world, or in Ethereum improvement proposals, except near it takes much faster to review those proposals than in Ethereum, where it takes half a year easily, which is, yeah, it's actually pretty slow. So that's where the second step comes in, which is how do you screen those ideas, right? You have community groups generating all of these things, which is probably the most difficult thing, to actually produce creative ideas. But now that you have a whole bucket of creative ideas, what do you do with those? And that's where what's so-called work groups come into place. And again, we didn't invent the work group concept. It was taken again as is from the Rust world. So the work groups is, that's where all the bureaucracy happens. That's where you have the committees of subject matter experts that were elected in a certain way. Like in Rust world, the way they're getting elected is through like social consensus. Today in NEAR, we're still pretty early on, so we're cherry picking them manually, but it's all going to be completely centralized eventually, and it's going to be again the social consensus, just like in Rust world. So we have 4 work groups today. We're going to have more. Each of them is composed of subject matter experts that have recommended themselves in the community of being reasonably unbiased, selfless, and also deep experts in their area of expertise. And so what they do, they basically take a proposal, right, like the one that you would see like in Rust or Ethereum world, and they run it through the discussion and verification, validation, but really quickly. They have certain standards that you need to satisfy, security standards. They want to make sure your architecture makes sense. They want to make sure your idea actually has some business value to it. So they discuss it out in the open publicly in a GitHub. They discuss it in the meetings that's streamed to YouTube. We have these meetings done all the time. We have dozens of people joining these meetings just to listen what's being discussed. And this is actually on the same level of participation that you would see in the Rust open source community. And at the end of this cycle for a single idea, which usually takes not more than 2 months today, they decide whether they decline or accept this idea. And that's basically our idea screening. And this, as I said, like the work groups is where all the bureaucracy happens. That means that's where we have roles. We have, one of them is called like author/champion. This is someone who actually feels passionate about some idea. They want to evangelize it. They want to pitch it. So we call this person author. They come in. They need to polish whatever came to their mind. They need to present. They need to convince people in its value. Then another role is called moderator. These are people who are just there to make sure that the quorum is observed, that people take turns talking, that there's certain format is happening. The reviewer, those are the subject matter experts. These are the people who actually were like cherry-picked. Many of them are old-timers. They've been in a NEAR ecosystem for many years. They know a lot about the development. So they are the ones that actually vote, provide the feedback, and they make decisions on whether certain ideas go through. And the final one is the approvers, right? So this is like the people right now, it's the same as actually the reviewers. They decide whether the idea goes through. This is our flow diagram, actually. I don't know whether you want to read it right now, but if you are serious about any kind of idea, you need to familiarize yourself with it. And finally, the implementation, right? This is where the rubber hits the road. It's like, all right, you have idea, it's being validated by the community, everyone is excited in your ecosystem about building it, expert gave you a thumbs up. What happens next, right? And we have lots of people who want to write code. So what we're doing today is that we have what is called a gigs board. So you go there, you can observe ideas, you can submit ideas yourself, and you can volunteer to implement it. You can say, all right, I'm gonna write the code for this thing, and sometimes you might want to do it for free because it's a little bit of a snippet. Sometimes you might want to be paid. You state your conditions, and sponsors, near foundation and DC, like whoever can come in and actually sponsor this thing. So we have a full cycle of the idea from generation to implementation, supported right now in the near ecosystem. And it's all run by hundreds of the developers as part of this near developer governance. And why we're doing it? Well, as I said, decentralized community can be only built by the community itself. It needs to be organic, it needs to be sustainable, but there's also a question of capacity because we really want to scale this thing. We want to have lots of cool projects implemented on this Near OS platform that Alex Göke presented before my talk. And this is not sustainable to build this whole thing by a couple of centralized companies. You really need an ecosystem to build it. That's the only way to actually scale it. And in fact, that will actually even close the feedback loop. What will happen is that once you have some cool applications built on Near or Near OS, these new applications will enable other applications to be created, right? You build some core tools and for the DeFi, for the social, like Eugene, for instance, build like a whole bunch of like social elements. Now other people can come in and build on top of this, right? So you don't build the whole thing yourself, you stand on the shoulders of the giants, and that's what creates this feedback loop where the more we do this, the faster this thing rotates and the more stuff you get and produced. So what's our progress so far? We started only like 3 months ago, and we started this initiative by like 1.5 engineers. We already have 4 work groups, 11 community groups. Banyan team is heavily involved with these community groups and helps us build it. We have 12 proposals reviewed, 6 in review, and 18 drafts. And for you to understand, some of these proposals are simple, changes. They are being discussed maybe in 1 or 2 days, but some of them are pretty huge. And in Ethereum world, for example, some of these proposals would take half a year easily to just get through, not just through the social consensus, but into the implementation. And we already got 12 of them, which is pretty amazing. And it's in 3 months. It's a pretty amazing velocity here. As I said, like each community group has 50 to 100 people. About 20 of them show up to meetings. About 20 of them join our YouTube streams when we discuss certain proposals, whether to approve or decline them. And we are still pretty early on. We expect this thing to grow by orders of magnitude. So what does it all mean to you? There are multiple ways how you can get involved in it. First of all, as I said, you can ideate, right? So the first step. How do you ideate? Well, you can join some of the community groups, right? Come to the brainstorm meetings, physical, virtual. You can create your own community group if you feel like there is a pretty big gap in our ecosystem, like something is not being discussed, or you want to duplicate some community group. I mean, no one stops you from creating another community group with exactly the same topic. If you think you can run it better, just go and do it. We can help you bootstrap it if you need to. Submit your ideas to this gigs board. Yeah, that's basically 2 primary ways of getting engaged on the ideation stage. If you have already some ideas that are polished and like well-defined, you have a pitch, Then you can submit a proposal, go directly to the GitHub, write proposal, or to the Gigs board again itself. Join our like Telegram channels or YouTube meetings where the work groups come together and discuss what ideas needs to be implemented, pitch it there. And finally, if you want to implement something again, go to the Gigs board and propose your implementation. There is an example. Ilya himself joined the Gigs board and said, this is how you implement it. I have a solution. You can do it yourself. If this is more than just a piece of code, and this is like a big project and you need funding, you can also request funding there too. And if your proposal good enough, you might get accepted, or if it's requires funding, you might even get a funding. We will help you with that too. So yeah, these are the links. Join us, get involved. We are still early on. If you join us early, it's very beneficial for you to join early with the project that might grow by 10 or 100 times in the next year or so. So, yep, thanks everyone. Any question? No, we want to keep things loose and unstructured. So, go submit any kind of raw idea in any format. This can be just like one sentence saying, "I wish we had MoveVM," or it can be like a full-fledged spec. Of course, if people start spamming, we're gonna have a moderator function, so we're gonna, hide it, deprioritize these things. But today it's all very freeform. Yeah. There is a Gigs board link at the top of the website near Dev.gov, and then you just click on it. This is near social platform, so you would need to have a near account to submit anything. And yeah, just put your idea in there. You might need to pitch. Depending on the idea, because some ideas there are like, I need like 5 lines of code, and some of them are like, I need $5 million, right? So if you're pitching for something like really big, you really need to sell it. And yeah, but it's really up to you. Like it's really on you to do this. So like as I said, like community groups are entirely permissionless. Anyone can come in, create one. So that's what Banyan are doing, right? They're heavily involved in the building communities. They're coming in, creating community groups that they think need to exist. They call them builder groups, whatever. And people come there to these groups. They brainstorm together with them ideas. They try to write code. Sometimes these ideas become so crystallized that we bring them to the work group. They do the formal review, because some things need to be like really approved to get them into the protocol spec or into some tool stack, right? Even funded. So yeah, we're working closely together on this. So there are already directions being broadcasted today by Near Foundation. We're gonna have more process later on how these directions are gonna be broadcasted to this community. Today it's more like just blog posts and whatever. And the directions are, we're going for Web 2.5, right? We're going for developers who are like building still partially on Web 2, but they want elements of the Web 3. We're going for a very developer-friendly experience. Some blockchains, they really like the tech that they have, right? And they find it like fascinating, and they want every developer to know how the consensus algorithm works. We are the opposite, right? We don't want you to be bothered with those things. We want you to think of it as something that doesn't affect your life. We want you to just like come in as a JavaScript developer and develop the whole thing end-to-end in JavaScript without even reading a documentation. That's our ideal world. That's my dream. If developer can develop on us without reading documentation, just in JavaScript. And we're pretty much there already. So this is the general direction. Developer friendliness, Web 2.5, right? We admit that it's always going to be a mix of Web 2 and Web 3 technology when people develop. Yeah, that's, I think, the 2 primary directions. All right, I guess no more questions. Well, thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Max. Round of applause for Max.